Hello and welcome to the Changemaker Podcast. I'm your host, Charlotte Watkins. Today I am joined by Dr Verity Jones, an Associate Professor here at UWE Bristol. And today we are going to be talking about the food system. So we're going to be talking about food waste and how to reduce our impact. Welcome, Verity. How are you?
Really well.
Good.
It's great to be here.
Lovely. Thank you for joining us. So one really interesting thing that you are involved in, which blows my mind, is about eating insects. First question, have you eaten an insect?
Actually, we all eat insects all the time. So I don't know what you had for breakfast, but lots of people tend to have toast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was a toast.
You were a toast. And there are tiny, tiny parts of insects in bread, in pasta. Do you eat chocolate?
Yes.
Okay, so in every 100-gram bar of chocolate, there's about 30 parts of an insect, just tiny, tiny ground down, because we literally can't take them out. So we're eating insects all of the time, but the work that I'm specifically looking at, well, one of the things that I'm looking at in the food system is how entomophagy, that's the eating of insects, could be a sustainable food kind of here in the UK and more widely. And in that context, the World Health Organization said that it's something that we should look to explore in the West. Globally, we've got about 2 billion people every day eating insects, and that's because they are massively high in protein, they have great micronutrients, more protein per weight than beef, and don't have the consequences that some other food production has. So, for example, beef produces quite a lot of methane, whereas insects don't. They have a smaller water need, a smaller food need, so they're quite sustainable to look at. And talking about edible insects, lots of people go, "Oh my gosh, that's really horrid." But it's a great way into talking about sustainable food and get people thinking.
Definitely. So I'm a vegan. How many minutes did it take before I told everyone that on the podcast? And I find it really interesting because having read about eating insects, I'm more inclined to eat insects because I've read about how much more sustainable the farming methods are, how there's only a small amount of space that's needed, small amount of water, all of these things. I'm like, actually, if I was thinking of eating animal-based protein, maybe this is the way. Should I be getting bugs from my garden?
Oh, no, please don't.
No.
Please don't. No. Insects are farmed in the levels of hygiene and the tick boxes that they have to do are just massive. So please don't go out and pick things out of your garden. Only have the food that has been produced to eat. So that's insects for food rather than for feed, because lots of our pets, so lots of pet food, lots of fish food, some of our listeners may have reptiles and they feed crickets too. Those also don't have a little try of those. Try the ones that are actually for human consumption. Why not? Lots of vegans that we talk to, and in actual fact, I was working in a school just yesterday, and we were talking to children about all sorts of different proteins. Protein's really important for our bodies, and globally, protein is part of the diet that is often overlooked. So we looked at different protein sources in school. We looked at beef, we looked at insects, and yesterday we were looking at plant-based. And we had vegans in the group, and a number of them were saying, actually, I wouldn't mind. So just like you, but their choice wasn't necessarily, it's good for the environment. Their choice was looking at in relation to animal well-being. So they were interested in how the animals within our food system are slaughtered, or as lots of other people say, harvested when it comes to insects. It's really interesting, the language around killing animals in our food system. So they were saying, well, because they felt that edible insects, in the UK, edible insects are killed tend to be killed by reducing the temperature that they're living in. So they go into a natural state of hibernation.
Okay.
So they go into a natural state of hibernation, and then they go unconscious. So they go to sleep and then turn down the temperature a little bit more, and then they die. So in that sense, it's not kind of hurting them, unlike the kind of massive electric shocks, potential stressful transportation of animals to abattoir, and those kind of systems. So when we talk to young people, so I'm in the education and the School of Education and Childhood. We do a lot of work with children, we do a lot of work with young people, and there's three main themes that come out around the food system that they're concerned with. And that is health, so what makes something healthy for them, the climate, what's the consequences of the food system on the climate, and animal welfare. So a lot of the time, young people are choosing and making choices about the food that they eat in relation to those. And as we get older, added to that is cost, especially in the current circumstances of our economics.
Mm-hmm. Do you mind talking about like your diet and what you eat? Because you're talking about working with young people, and I'm guessing that's because they're the future, they're more likely to adopt new things that maybe me and you might find a bit odd. What do you eat? How do you get your food?
How do I get my food? I really like food. I have been a vegetarian for as long as I can remember, but that was mainly because I just didn't like the idea of flesh in my mouth when I was really, really little. So I was that awkward kid who, my mum go, oh my God, and then my nan would say, would you like wafer thin ham because there's not much meat in it, which was a constant in my life. You can just pick the ham off the pizza. So I've been a vegetarian for years and years. As I have learnt more about food systems, more about animal welfare, I've kind of thought, actually, I'm not sure about having dairy. So at points, I've reduced my dairy. But then if you shift to soya, then you've also, great, soya, that's a great option. I'll try that for a bit. And then you learn about the deforestation for soya plantations and go, I can't do that. Okay, now what am I going to do? So constantly, and I think it's really important to recognise that constantly we're making and navigating this really complex and messy system. And we have to make those choices. What do we think is right? And if we don't think that system is right, one, what can I do to feel empowered and okay with the choices that I make? But also, is there anything that I can do to kind of shout and amplify what I think so that systems might change? Because quite often we can feel really helpless in this. And as educators, and kind of within our school, we are training teachers. So they've got really important jobs. And our young people, we know, and I've done work on it, lots of young people are feeling very stressed about climate change, about the environment and what's going on. We did a survey with over 1,000 young people, and that's from age 7 to 18. And, without doubt, climate change was one of the highest issues that they've done that they're concerned about. So thinking about how we can navigate these issues to really support young people in thinking positively, not about their own choices, but about how they can enable change in a positive way without feeling the weight of responsibility on their shoulders. So it might be as simple as, the young person's job is to sort the recycling and pop it out. Great, learning a life skill, working out what's being done there. Or it might be that they have a social media and they can ask a question to a supermarket, kind of, why aren't you having more seasonal fruit or veg, or why do you use this packaging, or something like that. Or it might be, I don't know, also, sorting out compost, or having, I really like community fridges and ways that we can kind of start sharing food that's near its sell-by date. Loads of different ideas that we can really kind of support people thinking through.
I love the way that you described it as messy. Like it is. And I think it can be so easy to be focused on perfection around these subjects. And so over the years, I've tried to be zero waste and been very much focused on my outputs. And so long as I was producing zero waste, I was doing the right thing. But then you only need to go a little bit further upstream to realise that doesn't necessarily really happen, because how did the food get to me and how was that packaged and all of those sorts of things. So by having less of a focus on the perfection and more focus on what can I do that isn't necessarily just about me as an individual, it's also about community, it's about holding people accountable, essentially, isn't it? It's a really brilliant way to empower people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's great to see. I think it's really important to highlight the good news stories as well. You know, we know that lot. We're being bombarded by negative news stories all of the time. And I've got some kind of quotes and numbers here because I can never remember them. So, you know, 25 to 30% of food is lost in waste globally. You know, a quarter of our food. And yet we know that we've got people living in poverty, people not being able to afford food, and yet all of this, almost over a quarter of food is being wasted. A lot of that is in the kind of the industrial part, the production phase, but there's also a lot in transportation, there's a lot post being in a supermarket and what the supermarkets are throwing away, and then there's also the amount that's wasted, domestic waste, so what we're throwing away. Now we can, in our homes, make changes, absolutely. We can look at best before dates and use by dates and do a sniff test. I mean, I'm all for a big sniff test, to be honest with you. You know, oh yes, it says, you know, best before, but, you know, have a sniff, you can taste it, it's fine. So there are those things that we can absolutely do. But as I said before, it's also looking to those good news stories. So Tesco, for example, quite often those big supermarkets come under scrutiny, but they have recently working with a social community food app, so that local community people come in, pick up the food that's near their sell-by date, and then they can redistribute it to local people for free. So I think we really need to take some positivity from what's going on as well. The Sustainable Development Goals that UE are committed to working towards. One of those Sustainable Development Goals is all about food, and one of the targets is that we halve, globally, including the UK, halve our food waste by 2030. And we need those good news stories to keep us going towards those targets.
So yesterday I visited the Sustainability Hub at UE, and they have tins of beans and carrots and things that are just free. And I mean, students love free food. So it's great that stuff like that is actually happening within the uni community itself. Absolutely.
And looking at fresh fruit and veg, 1 in 4 carrots is thrown away in our homes. A quarter of carrots. And I've got a dog. I walk the dog, you know, every morning I'm walking the dog, and Friday is our bin day. People put out, Bristol's brilliant. We have food waste. We can put our food waste out every week. But on a windy day, or when the foxes or the seagulls have been around, people's food waste tends to be strewn across the street, sometimes in some areas. And the amount of times I walk down the road and go, well, that potato is absolutely fine. And oh my word, there's all of... And you can pick out the food and you just think, actually, we could be saving ourselves so much money and so much embedded energy and water. When we throw away those potatoes or carrots or pieces of meat or fish, we have to remember that actually embedded in that is all of the energy and all of the water that produced it. It's not just the 25 pence banana that's in there. So I think we also need to be thinking about, okay, so what can we do? And as students especially, we can be saving so much money as a result of that. They reckon about £500 per household if we're really savvy in what we do. I'm a big banana eater myself, and I was shocked to find out that 0.9 million bananas a day are thrown away in the UK alone. So if you've got brown bananas that you don't want anymore, chop them up and put them in your freezer to make a smoothie. They freeze really well.
They really do.
That's my top tip.
Excellent top tip. Fun fact about me, I have made a banana peel curry before. Have you ever tried that?
No. What do you do with banana peels?
So you just like spiced it like you would, you know, any sort of thing you're putting in a curry. I don't know that I recommend it. I haven't done it since, but the options are there, you know?
Yeah, options, but we like them to be tasty.
What would you recommend people do if they aren't living in a city like Bristol that does have fabulous food waste facilities, what can we do to reduce food waste then?
Okay, so making a list, a shopping list, I think is really important. So if you food plan, then you only buy what you need, and I think that's super, super important. If you are making too much stuff, then think about, well, okay, can I use that tomorrow, or can I freeze things? That's really useful. You have attempted a banana peel curry. That sounds interesting. But you can explore ways of using your leftovers as well. I mean, soups are brilliant. Just bung everything in a pan and boil it up. Really useful. So I think looking to see how you can, change what you buy, which is not only good for the environment, but also good on your pocket. That's the way forward.
Lovely. So you've mentioned already about the work that you're doing with primary school children in Wales. What's the future of that project? What's happening?
Okay, what's happening next?
Yeah.
So at the moment we are just gathering some data from our young people, so about 250 young people across Wales, and we're really looking. Wales has got a really exciting new curriculum that far outshines the English one, I hate to say, and we've got a lot of catching up, and they have embedded sustainability, climate education and ethical citizenship within their curriculum. It only has kind of come into being over the last 12 months, 2 years. So we're looking to support teachers across Wales in ways of approaching sustainable citizenship through the food system. So we're looking to kind of think about ways forward in that.
Amazing. Are there any other projects that you and your students are working on at the moment that you wanted to talk about?
Oh, crikey, so many.
So many.
So
Amazing.
many. Well, I get quite excited because I get excited about many things. But in May, we recently opened Sparks, which if anyone does know Bristol, then that is the old Marks and Spencer's building in Broadmead in the city centre. And UWE's had a massive input into the development of this sustainability hub. It is unique, it is one of its kind, and I lead on the education down there. And we are so excited to have a department store that is a pilot for future department stores. We have got a clothes department, as any department store should, but it's all pre-loved clothes. It's beautiful. We have a food department, which is full of all community-produced foods, so local community. So you haven't got that kind of travel distance from where something's made to where it's sold. Absolutely gorgeous. We have a travel department which talks about sustainable travel. We have a furniture department, which again is all pre-loved and gorgeous. And then I'm really lucky, so I do work in the discovery department, which is all about education. So we have school visitors in, we do workshops on food is one of our workshops. So it's really exciting to be part of this energetic, creative and really forward-looking place in Bristol right now. So, come down and visit us.
That sounds amazing. And incredible that it's so central.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's really important.
Definitely.
Really important that people can get there, whether it's by train or by bus or whatever. And on our first weekend, we had 8,000 people come and see us.
That's incredible. Wow, this is the future. So you mentioned about food in the department store, and obviously we've talked about lots of different ways about getting food, reducing food waste. What about growing your own? What are your thoughts around that? Is that reducing?
Who doesn't love to grow their own food? Absolutely. And it's really important, especially for young people, to have a connection with nature. I mean, let's face it, if we don't connect with nature, we're not going to be empathetic with nature. There's lots of research that backs that up. With a risk society, we've got parents who are quite frightened about letting their children outside, having access to the outside, whether it be stranger danger or whatever that might be. We've got lots of communities that don't have access to an outside space or access to a garden. And we've also had COVID recently, where children have been literally locked up in their homes and haven't had access. So growing food ticks an awful lot of boxes. It enables us to experience and connect with nature again. Brilliant. And it also allows us to really understand what's going on in our food system, as well as reduce those kind of food miles, recognise what's seasonal and what's not seasonal, so that we can make those informed choices. So I am all for, even if it's just having a kind of a little bit of cress on your windowsill. Fantastic. You know, enjoy that cress or those seeds. Lovely. If you've got an allotment or a garden and you can grow a few beans, fantastic. But yeah, just have a go.
Any of students who are listening and are thinking that they don't have any outdoor space, something I found out this week is that UE actually have community gardens and you can grow your own veg there, which is incredible.
You can have your own allotment patch, absolutely. We've also got an orchard and you can pick from that. Any of our students can do that. And we've got our own beehives.
Amazing. That's lovely. Verity, this talk has been amazing. You are so inspiring. Thank you so much for coming along.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for asking me.
Not at all. Thank you for joining me. Next week, I'll be joined by Bryony Whitaker and Claire McKay, who are academics at UE Bristol. We'll be talking about festivals and what we can do to make them greener so we can enjoy them for years to come. See you next time.